Good morning. The Korean government announces plans to publish a formal white book providing further evidence of Japan's sexual slavery during and before World War II. The World Cup games are packed with Red Devils on the streets, and mixed in the crowds are the volunteers there to lend a hand. Wearable technology is evolving in different ways. Get a look at the progressive technology in wearables. And with the hot summer weather approaching, too much fun in the sun can have some major negative effects. On Korea Today, Tuesday, June 24th, 2014.
From Arirang News, this is Korea Today.
And good to have you with us on Korea Today on this Tuesday morning. I'm Kim Min-jung with Kim Young and Oh Jin-ju. You know, usually the weather is not the hottest topic, but these days really is the hottest topic. Yesterday it rained so much at one point I thought the sky had opened up or something. It was pretty
thunder
bad.
and lightning we're seeing all of a sudden, and then sunshine is coming out. But we are going to see this fickle weather conditions throughout the summer, and that's because because monsoon season is coming up on July.
It reminds me of the weather conditions back in Malaysia when I was growing up in that country. It's so unpredictable.
That
and
is
just
such
all
a good
these showers.
point. You know, that's well said, because that's what many weather experts are saying. They're saying that to forget the monsoon season, we're approaching during the summer conditions that you are likely to get in Southeast Asia, where we get the sporadic showers, sometimes thunderstorms, and it just dries up once again.
I also didn't know that this country is so big. You know, all these different weather conditions in different parts of the country. You know, it'd be raining in Seoul, but sunny in Gyeonggi-do province.
Exactly.
And things like that.
Exactly.
Pretty crazy.
That's right, that's right. The weather is unpredictable, and it is a little bit cloudy, I think, to start off. And relations between Korea and Japan have been on the cloudy side, as the South Korean government now plans to publish a white book in response to Japan's revision of the landmark apology for its role in sexual slavery during and before World War II. Seoul's foreign ministry on Monday summoned the Japanese ambassador to protest Tokyo's recent revision of the Kono Statement and announced plans for the first time to publish a formal white book of historical evidence backing Japan's sexual enslavement of Asian women. The Korean government aims to provide additional proof of Japan's responsibility of its wartime atrocities and raise awareness within the international community as well. North Korea also joined the South and slammed Japan for its distortion of historical facts, urging Tokyo to stop its efforts to whitewash past atrocities. 200,000 women, mostly from Korea, were forced to work as sex slaves for the Japanese military during and before World War II, according to historians. Only 54 Korean survivors remain alive, awaiting a proper apology.
Investigation is set to begin into the shooting spree by a South Korean soldier who killed 5 of his comrades and injured 7 others. The 22-year-old sergeant, identified only by his last name, Im, was taken to the intensive care unit after he shot himself in the chest before troopers could capture him. Authorities will look into the note that he had written before trying to take his own life and also determine whether Im was the subject of physical and verbal abuse among his servicemen. The military suspects that he had intentionally aimed at the victims. Until June, Im had been on the special watch list along with some 17,000 soldiers who may be suicidal or have personality disorders, thus unfit to serve on the front line. Seoul's defense ministry says the military will conduct thorough mental examinations on all troops within the month of July.
And the wife of the fugitive de facto owner of the Seoul Ferries operator and a former Semo Group chairman, Yoo Byung-eun, has been indicted. Incheon District Prosecutor's investigative unit has formally filed charges of breach of trust and embezzlement on 71-year-old Kwon Yoon-ja. She is the third of the most wanted Yoo's family members to be charged following his older brother, Yoo Byung-il, and brother-in-law, Kwon Oh-kyun. 2 close confidants from the Evangelical Baptist Church have also been charged with aiding and abetting a known fugitive.
Cheering went on for the Korean national football team through the downpour and despite the disappointing first half of the match against Algeria yesterday. Now, tens of thousands of people headed to the streets as early as the night before, but there were people who were out at the locations ahead of these fans to make the street cheering venue safer and more enjoyable. Our Kim Chan-ju was at the scene yesterday, and we connect live to her this morning for more. Good morning, Chan-ju.
Good morning, Jinju. I'm at the top of the building in Yeongdong-daedo, where literally tens of thousands of people took to the street to cheer for Team Korea. Here you can see the full view of Yeongdong-daedo, and it is quite amazing to think that it was filled with 40,000 people just yesterday. Such a large-scale event like this one could not have been possible without the help of hard workers involved in this event. So let's take a look at who those hidden helpers were and what they did to make the most of the street cheering event. Yeongdong-daedo is where large-scale street cheering is taking place during the World Cup. All preparations were in full swing to install various equipments to ensure public safety. At the same hour, taxi drivers took time from their busy work schedules and came out to the street, ushered their roles for this occasion.
250 drivers with exemplary records are participating in voluntary service. Traffic controls will continue until noon after the match ends, and we are also helping pedestrians to safely cross the road.
Street cheering in Seoul is held at three major venues: Gwanghwamun Plaza, Yeongdong-daedo and Yeonseo roads. Considering the large crowd gathering up in streets, the Seoul Metropolitan Police Agency dispatched 5,000 forces to prevent unexpected accidents and crime. After fully preparing for safety accidents, it's finally time for the grand street cheering. The core of street cheering lies in the mega screens. A major motor company in the country has provided outdoor screens and a stage for the public. 40,000 spectators flocked to these mega screens.
We have 3 screens in total, and when it comes to street cheering, interaction is vital, which is why we have prepared mega screens for the audience to be able to catch each and every move of the Taeguk warriors.
While everyone was gearing up for the street cheering, sudden torrential downpour hampered the last-minute preparations, but did not stop them. Towards a different part of the crowd, free beverages were distributed to cool the heated crowd.
It's a bit challenging, but I like interacting with people by giving out beverages, and I like to think that this helps our team in a way.
It's a nighttime cheering session in the street, so a lot of people are looking for hot soup, and we are getting a good response.
It is now after 2 a.m. Some students are already collecting trash before the match takes place.
The rain is making our work difficult, but I think it's great to contribute to a positive image of Korea by collecting rubbish and creating a better street culture.
Street cleaning volunteer workers are comprised of 70 college students. They mainly help out to clean the streets, but this time a face painting event also took place for free. The street culture is born with unique and individual talents of each citizen in Korea.
I mean, like from beginning to end, there's so many people here helping out, from everyone, like you said, like the taxi drivers to the company workers to just people who are helping out with simple stuff like face paint. So there's so many people here. It's really awesome to see like this many people out.
Meanwhile, during the second half of the Korea-Algeria match, there are people closely monitoring the screen, while many are focusing on what's happening on the street.
More important than watching the match is to keep things in order for everyone here. I volunteer in order to help enhance our country's image.
The match wraps up and the crowds are moving in perfect order.
We installed 30 portable dumpsters and are distributing 600 free garbage bags to the public. So far, it's great to see people taking part voluntarily.
Korea's World Cup street cheering plays a pivotal role in leading Korea to victory. As Team Korea paves their way through the 2014 FIFA World Cup, these hidden helping hands are creating the atmosphere needed for a cheering culture that is unique only to Korea. Well, not only the capital city of Seoul, but the 34 other locations nationwide, including Haeundae Beach in Busan, gathered a total of 104,000 people. Well, it was good to see those people doing their part to bring that World Cup spirit alive. Most importantly, everyone took responsibility to keep their environment clean, and they were picking up rubbish voluntarily after the match ended. Over to you, Jinju.
Right, it was definitely a good thing to see. And as we saw in the report, there were a lot of young volunteers that came out to the locations to help out. How were they recruited?
Well, there was that college students who were doing the street cleaning voluntary work that was organized by one of Korea's major convenience store chain, as well as those participating for giving out free food and beverages. Well, these volunteers went through several stages of interview before being selected 2 months prior to the street cheering event. Well, what these companies or organizations are looking for is volunteers that are willing to do some good deeds for other people, but and obviously someone in good health, considering the time of the match is taking place at very early hours of the morning. So when the Friday comes and Korea faces Belgium, many more individuals are expected to flock down to the street to contribute their talent and time. Whether it would be handing out baked goods or food, or maybe setting up a special booth for a reformed clothing booth, more like to instantly redesign that red uniforms that Korean football fans will be wearing that day. Over to you, Shinju.
It definitely wouldn't have been the same without these volunteers. Thank you, Chenju, for that report. That was our Kim Chenju on the helping hands behind the scenes at World Cup cheering locations.
Good Tuesday morning. It's time to run through the front pages of your newspapers. And you did hear earlier on in the program, but after an intense standoff session with the military in about 42 hours since the shooting spree, the Korean Army sergeant who was on the run was captured alive following a failed suicide attempt. Now that story is on pretty much all of the papers this morning. Again, we'll take a look at it on the front page of 동아일보. And the header reads, discontent with peers, Army life brings tragedy. Now, as you heard, the 22-year-old Sergeant Im fired at the left side of his upper body between his chest and shoulder with his rifle amid the standoff. He was immediately transported to a hospital where he is currently being treated. Now, the capture came after the military authorities, along with his father and older brother, kept persuading him to surrender. The paper adds that the state of the matter is serious and that the military only has an estimate for the number of soldiers that require special attention, soldiers like Im. In fact, the subheadline here notes that the military can only assume that 3.6% of the entire number of soldiers belongs to the highest level A, which means they need extra supervision and are unfit to perform border patrols, like I mentioned yesterday. The Daily stresses that the military's management of these servicemen are too poor, and not having the exact statistics on such soldiers is a dereliction of duty. Now let's leave that story, go over to another domestic issue here, below that image. And this one is about a new identification system. We know that in the country there have been orders by the president to review and improve the national ID system due to security concerns, particularly with regards to the resident registration number. The government has been examining alternatives that do not reveal personal information. So this headline says, new identification method of resident ID number under review. So as a subheadline also notes, The Ministry of Security and Public Administration is planning to come up with an alternative measure for the resident registration number. And what the ministry plans to examine is the introduction of a new certification method that involves issuing a registration number that is not written on one's ID card. Now, this number is to be made out of random numbers that have nothing to do with one's date of birth or anything that reveals one's gender or other personal information. And moving on to some other news on 중앙일보. Take a look at this one. On the political front, and the Saenuri Party is set to hold its national convention on July 14th, in which as many as 10 candidates are expected to run in the race for the party's new leadership. The title here says, Group Action by Saenuri Party's Younger Faction Show Reformation at National Convention. So within the ruling party, a purification movement has been unfolding, with the younger faction of the party holding a meeting to reform and innovate the National Convention. They say that the National Convention carries great significance, especially as it chooses a new leadership following the Seoul ferry disaster and also the June 4th local elections. On this note, they also made remarks concerning their pursuit in getting rid of political malpractices that reside within their own party. And finally, let's take a look at the economy through the Mail Business newspaper. And this is the top story here. The government, along with relevant industries, has been spurring efforts to develop technologies involving medical and IT convergence here in Korea. The headline reads, a $6 trillion market, healthcare big bang. So a new paradigm in the healthcare industry is making its way to the forefront with the advancement in genome technology, stem cells, and regenerative medicine on top of a medical IT convergence. Now, the healthcare industry is emerging fast, driven by the aging society, along with increase in chronic diseases and household income in emerging countries. Now, there are three paradigms of the healthcare industry. They are, number one, preventive medicine, two, personalized and advanced medical treatments, and three, home care, such as telemedicine and telecare systems. And that was a look at your newspaper headlines for this Tuesday. Now, coming up are the stock numbers from Monday.
And as we mentioned at the top of our program, the weather has been very unpredictable. Skies opening up, raining cats and dogs, only to reveal...
Thunder and lightning.
Exactly. No rainbows, though.
You're right. No rainbows, although we would like to see a rainbow, right? So for a closer look at today's weather conditions, we'll take things over to our Chun Sung-cho, who joins us from the rooftop of a tall building, I think. Good morning to you.
Good morning, guys. The good news is that today the nationwide downpour over the past couple of days is reduced to much smaller areas today. It'll be mainly over Gangwon-do and Gyeongsang-do provinces. Those regions will receive sporadic showers with thunder, lightning, and strong gust of wind. The capital area may see some light precipitation here and there as well. The rest of the country is mostly under mostly cloudy skies, as you can see, and it's very foggy everywhere, and the humidity that's left over from all the rainfall may give you the uncomfortable, stuffy feel in the air. So let's take a closer look at today's temperature readings. You see most cities' midday highs hovering near the 30 degrees Celsius mark, like Seoul at 28 and Daegu the warmest at 29. On the other hand, near the eastern and the southern coast, it's a little bit cooler, such as Busan, Gangneung, and Jeju. Starting tomorrow, it'll be scorching hot with no more rainfall in most cities, so get ready to say hello to the hot weather again. This is all for me with the weather forecast. Back to you, Min-jung.
Let's now get a check on the global headlines we're following at this hour. We'll turn things over to our Eunice Kim, who joins us from the News Center. Good morning to you, Eunice.
Hello, Min-jung.
Now, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is now in Baghdad, and he pledged, quote, intense and sustained support for the country, which is being ripped apart by militants of the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, or ISIL.
That's right, he did. He met with Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki as well as key Shia and Sunni figures, and one of the main messages he had for them was one for unity. He emphasized that the future of Iraq depends on decisions made in the next days and weeks, and urged the leaders to take steps together against ISIL. He said Prime Minister Maliki reaffirmed his commitment to forming a new, more inclusive government by July 1st. This as insurgents have now captured all of the border crossings to Syria and Jordan. A key airport in the northern town of Tal Afar is said to have also fallen to the fighters who want to create their own Islamic caliphate. And on a side note, the Daily Mail reports the judge that sentenced former leader Saddam Hussein to death was captured and killed by ISIL militants earlier last week as retribution. The Iraqi government, though, has yet to confirm that report. Heavy rains have also triggered chaos in China. Widespread flooding in dozens of cities in southern China has killed at least 26 people and affected some 3 million. Yunnan and Hunan provinces were some of the areas worst hit, forcing hundreds of thousands of people to relocate. Guangxi province received a month's worth of rain in just 24 hours. Hunan province alone saw some 123,000 hectares of crops damaged, hurting agricultural output. Total economic losses are estimated to be around $650 million.
And finally, a story that had captured the interests of many ended on a bright note. A pregnant Sudanese woman who was sentenced to death for leaving her Muslim faith has been freed.
That's right, Minjung. An appeals court overturned Maryam Ibrahim's death penalty on Monday, and her lawyer says she has been freed. Her husband, thrilled by the news and awaiting her return. Now, according to Ibrahim, who had been in detention since February and gave birth to her second child, a daughter, while in prison, she had adopted her Christian faith at a young age and married a Christian man. But because her father, who had abandoned the family when she was 6, was a Muslim, the courts had regarded her to be Muslim as well. They sentenced her to 100 lashes for adultery and death by hanging for apostasy, as outlined under Sharia law, as Sudan has been under Islamic law since the 1980s. But it seems international outrage may have had an impact on the government in Khartoum, as people around the globe, including world leaders like UK Prime Minister David Cameron, as well as Hillary Clinton and Tony Blair, had called on the courts for the sentence to be dropped. Ibrahim's husband, a naturalized American, said he was looking forward to seeing her and wants his family to leave Sudan soon. And that's a wrap of the global headlines we're following this morning.
And still to come, taking us into the future, wearable technology. It's a new field that's quickly gaining momentum, and we'll take a look at what's going to sweep the world off its feet when it comes to wearable technology. Don't go away.
If you have a headache, you might want to take some aspirin, and it'll probably help. If you have a stomach ache, some antacids, or even some thing for indigestion, it may help. But what about for a heartache? Well, art just might be the answer. Our Imuni joins us with more on that. Good morning.
Good morning, Young. So today I have an artist who does aim to spread a smile to a nation attempting to overcome a tragedy. He himself has also had to overcome some trials of his own. So take a look. A smile can brighten a day, but what about a wall of smiles? Artist Lee Mo-kul became known for his hyper-realist paintings. But as he grows with age and wisdom, he wants to share something else with the world, the joy of a smile.
It's my desire to make people laugh and to make them lighthearted during difficult times.
Last year, the 53-year-old artist began his Smile series, a series that was born out of his efforts to create happy, optimistic images. And now they decorate the walls and touch the lives of many around the nation.
This is something I have to do. That's why I created this exhibition, because I wanted to share a smile. In the end, it doesn't matter if you're rich or even how well you can draw the pictures.
Through the end of this year, E-Smiles will be touring all over Gyeonggi-do province, along with other neighborhoods around Korea. E believes a smile is a gift from heaven, a gift that is sure to be appreciated by many.
And the artist Lee Mo-gul, he does spread that gift from heaven, the promise of a smile to those around him. Now, you mentioned that he had to overcome trials of his home. Tell us a bit more about this artist.
Right, so Lee had to overcome quite a bit. So at a young age, he had to endure poverty. And because of that, he actually began to lose his vision at the age of 10. And for an artist, that is critical. And so now he is almost blind, but he said he wants to spread optimism. And through this, he was born the Smile series. And so now he wants to spread optimism, not only for himself, but for the public as well.
So this is an artist with a visual impairment that makes him almost unable to see, right? And he's still doing this, trying to inspire others, and that is a very touching story. And you did mention that there are other healing projects that are going on right now, some exhibitions that aim to really brighten people's lives.
Right, there have been quite a few, but one in particular really has been touching the hearts of many, and that's one that's in honor of a victim of the Seoul ferry accident. And she was actually a student, Park Ye-sul, and she was, before she was taken by the accident, she wanted to be a designer, an aspiring designer. And so some people were very inspired by her and have created an exhibition that will open early next month that will be showcasing some of her artwork, some of her designs. And actually, a very well-known designer, Lee Kyung-bi, she's going to be creating shoes based on this student's designs. And so a very touching event that will be open soon, and so people will be able to see that.
Okay, well, sounds good. A lot of inspirational stories through these exhibitions are being told. All right, thank you very much, Uni, for that.
Always a pleasure.
And stay with us on Korea Today, because as we do approach the warmer summer months, or the hotter summer months, heat stroke as well as heat exhaustion is becoming a factor. And you might not know the difference. If you start getting that headache or you start feeling lightheaded after a jog in the summer day, then it might be a bit more than meets the eye. But have no fear, today's Health Plus says or lays out what's important: heat stroke, heat exhaustion, and prevention, plus solutions.
Korean director and screenwriter Bong Joon-ho, known for the critically acclaimed movies such as Snowpiercer, Mother, and The Host, also known as Gwemul, is now back with a new movie.
Right, it's called Sea Fog, and this time he isn't directing it or writing a screenplay. He's the chief producer of the movie. For more on this, our Misorang joins us from the digital room. Misorang?
Good morning. Now, if the name Bong Joon-ho isn't enough to get you excited, perhaps the name Park Yoo-cheon will for those K-pop fans out there, because he's set to make his movie debut with this film. Before I expand on this though, let's run through some of the other issues that are trending online. Squall and the accompanying bursts of very heavy rain showers take everyone by surprise. Bong Joon-ho film, as we mentioned earlier, pitcher Ryu Hyun-jin of the LA Dodgers takes his 9th win of the season, 6 games earlier than last year. Without defeat yesterday morning, people look at what it would now take for Team Korea to advance to the first round of the World Cup. And a man claiming to have invented a perpetual motion device capable of giving endless power supply has left many somewhat skeptical. Now, going back to the first listing there about the weather, we've had some crazy rain showers recently. It'll be completely fine 1 minute, then pouring very heavily with thunder and lightning the next. It's part of what meteorologists call a squall. Let's take a look. A squall is a sudden increase in the wind speeds, usually accompanied by heavy rain showers and thunderstorms. To qualify as a squall, the wind speed must increase by at least 8 meters per second to attain a top speed of at least 11 meters per second, lasting for at least 1 minute in duration. This phenomenon is common in the tropical and subtropical regions, where it's seen almost every day. In Korea, on the other hand, we experienced squalls mid-summer, but it came earlier than usual this year, making some people think that the monsoon season had already started inland as well. Moving on to our next issue, Sea Fog, or the first film produced by Bong Joon-ho, is set to premiere mid-August. Let's take a look at the trailer and see what the producer had to say. Sea Fog, also known as Haemu by its Korean title, is about 6 crewmen on board a fishing vessel dreaming of a big catch. Also on board the vessel are illegal immigrants being smuggled into Korea, and together with the crewmen, they try to survive a tragedy at sea. Park Yu-chun from the idol group JYJ plays a young crewman, while sitting in the director's chair is Shin Sung-bo, known for penning the screenplay for the film Memories of Murder. Regarding the movie, Bong Joon-ho said in a recent interview that the producer position was extremely difficult for him and that he would most likely go back to his more familiar roles of director and screenwriter. Sea Fog will premiere August 13th. And that concludes our look at today's edition of News Sum Up.
There's growing interest in the field of wearable technology as people realize smart devices enable them to use both hands freely while engaging in other activities. Recently, wearable gesture technology developed by the Electronics and Telecommunications Research Institute is at the center of attention. It takes on a new approach using the detection of muscle movements in the wrists.
Wearable gesture technology uses a person's hand movement to provide input for computers. It was based on the idea that people's wrist muscles move as they move their hand, so they put sensors in that area to detect the signals.
With the watch on your wrist, all you need to do is open and close your fist to create movements on the screen. A closed fist turns it on, while an open hand turns it off. By adding a certification function, you can lock and unlock the door of your car or home with just some simple movements. Meanwhile, there are also touch sensors that are bendable and foldable, which have been developed for the first time in the world. The thin and transparent sensor contains data activated by touch and can be used in various wearable devices. The sensor can identify touch data from light. This is because the light from the point that has been touched disperses. As a result, the light output is smaller than the input. And the width is only at 0.05 millimeters, which is only half the width of a strand of hair. It allows 90% of the light to pass through, and because it uses light instead of electricity and electronics, it also works in the water. There's great expectation that this technology can be used in homes with appliances to allow for easier control of the devices.
So it can be used for the touch sensor for future display, such as flexible display, which is very bendable and maybe flexible. And another application area is input interface for the wearable devices. And it might be used for the artificial skin sensors for robot hand and robot arms.
This technology was introduced on the online edition of Advanced Materials, a highly regarded journal in the field. There's also gesture technology using finger movements that has recently been commercialized for the first time in Korea by a company called UseBrainNet. The ring-like wearable device is called the Motion Ring and is extremely compact. At a mere 13 grams, the device is light and has high battery efficiency, allowing it to run for up to 6 hours consecutively.
The motion ring functions not only as a mouse, but also as a remote control for presentations, smart TVs, and cameras. In the future, it can be used for a variety of games, home automation, Internet of Things, and other fields.
The Motion Ring can be used as a remote control with smart TVs. All you need to do is write out a number and it changes the channel. If you press the motion button and use the appropriate gesture, recognition sensors such as a gyro, acceleration, and terrestrial magnetic sensors read the motion and move related devices accordingly by using a Bluetooth connection. The motion ring also works with smartphones and allows you to take pictures. Not only that, in first-person shooter games, it can be used as a motion controller and allows you to enjoy a more active and enjoyable gaming experience. The wearable device industry is growing at a rapid rate, and with this, Korea is expanding into fields such as wearable computers, which will help shape the future.
Wow, this is pretty neat. And you're the new model?
Yeah, well, this is the prototype, I would have to say. And you can see that there are certain setting buttons over here. And once you do have the program at hand, you can go ahead and set it to the motion. There are sensors right here on the side, on the bottom end. And these sensors are to meet with the area on the wrist where you have those tendons, right?
Wow.
So every time you move it, once we have it set up, we can get it set up, but once you do that, then it senses that and sends the message to the computer. So basically what you'd be able to do is be like Tony Stark on Iron Man. You just close things and
fun.
make me jump disappear, appear, and then go
You would want to do that, huh?
once we get this working.
Right. We also saw the ring-type wearable device, and joining us this morning is Mr. Lee Sun-gil from UseBrain.net. Good morning to you, sir. We're going to use some brains today, right?
Okay, good
Not my
morning.
brain. I just want to rest.
Yeah. Hi, this is Sun. I'm the representative of UseBrain.net. I'm in charge of global marketing part, and I'm gonna show you about the motion ring.
Right.
Okay. So.
All right,
So,
so that's can you show us how that works a little bit?
It's like a mouse. It's the right click and this is the button that you use when you use the gesture, the motion. Yeah. So it's pretty decent.
Okay, what are some of the things that it can actually do? I mean, that's the question over here, right?
Yeah, usually usually what we can do is like we can connect to smartphones, smart TVs, and all these other devices, and then we can use it to switch to other.
Right. Can you open up that presentation? I know
Okay,
you
sure.
had.
Okay, there you go. So we click on the right, yeah, we move it, and then we click.
So you're
it.
controlling
We
this
double
with
click
your
it.
ring. Wow.
Exactly. So it's a double click, and it's just like a mouse.
Okay.
And after that, you have to have a motion gesture, right? So we want to change it into slide motion. So it's the L shape, okay?
Okay.
It's a large L shape. So we click this button right here.
Right.
And then we just do that. And then there we go.
Wow. Can I give it a go? If I can do it,
Yeah.
anyone can do it.
Okay.
It's the dummy proof. Let's
Okay.
see.
That looks very
And you gotta
Hold it
press
down.
press
All
it,
right.
and then if you want to just go to the next slide, just go to the next.
Oh, so you
Right.
slide out. Like
Okay,
that, right?
just click again.
Okay.
Just click.
And then go like that.
Yeah.
Oh,
See?
wow.
So if you want to go to the previous slide, just click to the other side. Yeah.
Wow.
There we go.
Just like that
Yeah.
with a slide.
Yeah.
With a little bit of motion.
If you click on it and then you just twist your wrist,
Wow,
then it
look
goes
at
like
what
that.
I'm doing.
Yeah. But
Wow.
you just
If
went
our
out. You just went
camera
out. That's very sensitive, so you gotta touch it
Wow,
very.
I'm having fun here.
Yeah, we have other like 80 gestures, but this is the only stuff that we want to show you today because we don't have all the time.
But
Just-
could you
yeah.
talk about it? Like, what other things can we use this device for, and in what situation, or who would make the best out of this?
Okay. We would definitely this. Is a smart TV. We can use it for connect to smartphones and smart TV and all this stuff, and usually we can operate at home, so we don't have to move around
From a distance.
Yeah, we
right.
can be a slouch potato and just move around.
And I would also imagine presentations. It's like you're going,
Right,
hey, check this out. This
right.
is the motion controller,
Yeah.
smart TV, FTS game, and
Yeah.
the smart controller, and then you could move on.
Yeah, exactly. So
Okay, what does the future hold for these wearable ring-type technologies?
I mean, it's a trendy stuff right now. And if you go to abroad, there's also like products such as like a long bar ring, and they're still in the initial phase. They haven't developed yet, but we're right now ready for mass production. So we're ready to go.
I see the confidence in
Yeah.
your eyes.
Yeah, he wants to get it out on the market right
Yeah,
now.
it's already.
It's
Yeah,
already
we are
there,
ready.
right?
Yeah, because it's as you can see, it's very functional, and we can also play, videos. We can play like TVs and stuff like that. So it's pretty decent.
So what is the competitive edge that this product has
what's
over
this
other?
apart?
This product, because it's not only a mouse. Because in Taiwan there's actually a product out, but they only operate as a mouse. But we can do a gesture. So like let's say we can like move around the L shape.
Right.
Yeah.
Motion recognition.
Motion recognition, motion gesture.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And now, are there any other wearable devices that you're working on right now apart from this?
Yeah, we're still developing, but right now we're more concentrated on this, and we're trying to more develop, more the ring. I mean, it's kind of, bulky a little bit, so we want to make it more simple, make it more compact ring looking. So yeah, that's what we're trying to,
Young's having a lot of fun right now.
And then, we're going to use it to make games, control games. And there's another gesture, it's really hard to go over there and pull it down, right? So it's actually like that. So there's actually other gestures, but
So you have to learn the
yeah, you
movements.
you have to know the movements.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, this is the coolest thing next to the mood ring that we had back in elementary school.
So
That's
then
totally true. Yeah.
later on, you're just going to have one of these, and then you're not even going to be able to. You don't need to be in front of it.
You're like
You
Lord
just-
of the Rings, Frodo.
Exactly.
Yeah, the precious ring.
And
Control
this would
everything like
definitely
this.
give you bragging rights, right?
Yeah.
Look, I have a cool ring.
Yeah, it's a cool ring.
You're still fiddling with that mouse. Look at this.
Right.
There we go.
Thank you so much for sharing this product with us.
Yes,
and
thank
good
you.
luck to you.
Thank
you.
you. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And a good Tuesday morning to you all as we continue on with our 2014 Brazil World Cup coverage. Now, of course, starting today, there were 4 matches that took place, including the 2 undefeated teams in Group B, the Netherlands and Chile. So let's take a look at the highlights. Now, both nations neck and neck throughout the first half of the match as the first half ends in a 0-0 draw. But the second half is Le Hoy Fer, who strikes in the 77th minute, giving the Dutch the 1-0 lead. 90-plus minute Memphis Depay with the insurance goal, giving the Netherlands the 2-0 win, as the Netherlands finished Group B in first place with 3 wins. Now next up, Spain and Australia, who both have 2 losses in Group B, square off earlier today. David Villa scores in the 36th minute, giving Spain the 1-0 first half lead. Second half, Fernando Torres and Juan Mata would each score a goal, giving the Spaniards the 3-0 win, finishing Group B in third place. Meanwhile, in Group A, Brazil and Cameroon facing off. Neymar scores twice in the first half, scoring his 3rd and 4th goal of the tournament, helping Brazil beat Cameroon 4-1 as they advance to the next round. And lastly, Croatia needing a win over Mexico to go through the next round, but Rafa Marquez in the second half scores off of a header, leading to a barrage of Mexican offense after, as Mexico qualifies with a 3-1 win. And now, of course, moving over to the South Korean national football team, where after losing to Algeria 4-2 in their second group stage match, things have gotten harder for them to qualify for the next round. So how can they actually advance? Well, take a look at the Group H standings so far. Belgium is already in thanks to their 2 wins so far in Group H, but Algeria is in second with 1 win and 1 loss with a goal difference of +1. That means in the next final group stage match, Russia needs to beat Algeria by a 1-goal difference, meaning both nations will be at 4 points with a goal difference of 0. Meanwhile, Korea will need to beat Belgium by 3 goals or more so that they may advance with 4 points with a goal difference of +1. And as New York Times have calculated, Korea now has a 5% chance of advancing to the next round. Well, Algeria was definitely a surprise team this World Cup, but Costa Rica, who has already beaten Uruguay and Italy, has been the biggest surprise so far, but they're not happy after 7 of their players were tested for doping. As the FIFA is suspicious over the recent success of Costa Rica, 7 of their players were tested for doping despite just 2 players normally being tested per team. According to the Associated Press, the president of the Costa Rican Football Association asked FIFA why just their players were tested after their 1-0 win over Italy. FIFA answered back, stating that 8 players on the team did not take a test prior to the World Cup, hence the number of players tested. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Recently, with temperatures soaring above 30 degrees Celsius, there's greater concern about potential health risks. Under sweltering heat, the body may not be able to maintain normal temperatures and struggle with heat-related conditions such as heat exhaustion or heat stroke. The average temperature of the human body sits between 36 and 37 degrees. But if it hits the range between 37 and 40, it becomes heat exhaustion, and if it exceeds 40 degrees, it turns into heat stroke. According to a report on heat-related illnesses in the summer released by Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the number of patients with heat-related conditions are on the rise. Heat stroke in particular can lead to death under extreme conditions. In neighboring Japan, 3 people have died from scorching temperatures, with some hundreds reportedly being admitted to the hospital. We'll take a look at what kind of heat-related conditions to look out for and what we can do to prevent them.
All right, it's in those hot summer months where people do end up getting heat stroke. And we do hear a lot about heat stroke, but I don't think a lot of people know a lot of the difference between heat stroke and heat exhaustion and how to really prevent it. So we'll get a look at that. Joining us this morning is Dr. Alice Hyun-Kyung-tan from Samsung Medical Center.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Dr. Nam Dong-woo joining us from Kyunghee University Medical Hospital.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, I think the question is, what is the difference? So we'll shoot that one over to you. Ladies first, heat exhaustion and heat stroke. What's the difference?
Right. So there is a continuum of illnesses that are heat-related illnesses, starting from heat cramps, then moving to heat exhaustion, and then heat stroke. So heat stroke is the most severe form of heat-related illness, and it's defined as having neurologic deficit. In other words, the patient's having a seizure, or there's loss of consciousness or delirium, plus a core body temperature of greater than 40 degrees. It's a very serious medical condition. We consider it an emergency, and it has a high mortality rate of up to 60%.
Wow.
Heat exhaustion can be considered the stage right before heat stroke, and the patient will feel tired and fatigued related to the dehydration that happens because of prolonged heat exposure.
Now, this could risk brain damage if it's not treated fast enough.
People can die.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. What
Yes.
about in Korean medicine?
In Korean medicine, for heat exhaustion, we call it 중서 or 주압병, which means it's caused by heat and it occurs mainly in the summertime. So when we sweat too much, we will tend to harm the umgi, which is yin of yin and yang, and also the vital energy called wongi will be weakened. So the heat exhaustion is not that severe, but you can faint for a few minutes or maybe feel just dizzy and maybe fatigue. And as for heat stroke, it's a more severe condition where you'll be unconscious most time. And this is also explained in the Korean literature, 동의보감. And when you work in a high temperature environment, the heat from the outside of the body and the heat from the inside of the body will meet to synergize and harm your lung functions. So this will cause the heat to build up in your body and the patient will experience heat shocks.
So I'm guessing as long as you stay away from direct sunlight, you can pretty much avoid these two gentlemen first this time?
Well, the most simple and obvious way the general population can prevent this condition is to keep cool in the shades and also drink a lot of cool water during the outdoor activities.
But staying away from direct sunlight is not enough necessarily to prevent heat-related injuries. There's something called the wet bulb globe temperature, and what this is it's a reflection of the overall environmental heat load, and it takes into account the ambient air temperature, but also the humidity and radiant heat. And it's highly correlated with heat-related injuries. And so people, say, who are athletic coaches or supervisors really need to be aware of the significance of the wet bulb globe temperature, and they should have a protocol in place so that people can limit their activities in hot weather.
And I've heard that overweight people are more vulnerable to the heat. And Dr. Nam, is there a certain type of body or people that are more easily affected by the heat?
Yes, it can differ for the body figure you have or maybe the type of person you are. In Korean medicine, Taemin or Soyangin can be more likely to experience heat strokes and heat exhaustion compared to Somin, because Soyangin, they have weaker kidney functions, and the kidney controls the body water. So Soyangin will tend to get dry easier and build up heat. And as for Taemin, they tend to have excessive heat, so this excessive heat will build up to cause heat shocks.
Okay, well, it's important to act immediately when you see someone who is suffering from heat exhaustion or heat stroke. What would you do if you're in this situation? Take a look.
Lee Jae-deok is a basketball player, and despite the heat wave alert, he heads out with his friends for another game. He feels a little dizzy during the game, but pushes on, only to pass out in a while. In this situation, what would be the best way to respond? Move him to the shade and loosen his clothing. Give him some water and try to help him gain consciousness. Lay him down straight and raise his legs above head level and massage his legs. Wipe his body with cool water. Out of these options, which would be the incorrect way to respond?
Okay, I kind of have an idea.
Something tells me that you don't give them water, but I could
They
be
would
wrong.
choke on it. I think it would go down the wrong.
That's why we have
into the lungs,
doctors
right?
to answer us, right? So what
Cool
was
them off,
the...
I would say.
Young, yeah, you're absolutely right. So number 2, the second scenario was the wrong thing to do. So in a patient who is unconscious, you never ever want to put anything in their mouth because basically what goes in the mouth can go straight into the lungs. And so if you're putting fluid or water in the mouth of someone who's unconscious, it's almost like drowning the patient. So you never want to do that.
Okay, and we have 3 other choices. What would be the best way to approach someone who's unconscious like that?
The most important factor will be to cool down the body temperature. So you can wipe the patient's body with a wet towel, or you can pour water on their bodies. That will help. And from Korean medicine, there is this herb called 맹문동 that you could intake as a tea or a decoction, and it will help prevent heat exhaustion and heat strokes.
And are there any tips that we can use to stay away from the heat during this hot summer? And are there any other summer-related health concerns that we need to watch out?
Well, in terms of other summer-related health concerns, people are using the air conditioner, kind of round the clock these days. And when you use the air conditioner a lot, it can dry out your eyes, your mucous membranes, your skin. Dry mucous membranes can lead to throat irritation and respiratory infections. And so optimal, actually, humidity and temperature. So for humidity indoors, you should try to shoot for somewhere between 30 and 50%. Indoor temperature, somewhere between 22 and 25 degrees Celsius. So you don't need to make the room too cold, too dry. Also, you need to be careful about the cleanliness of the air conditioner because if the filters or the reservoirs are not clean, that can set you up for allergies and also infections such as Legionnaire's disease. You need to be very careful about that.
We're just so used to cool temperatures that 26 degrees Celsius would feel very hot.
Yeah, I'd rather have 22 there, right? Dr. Nam, any words on what you would suggest? Are there some foods or herbs that can help you stay warm, cool for people who spend a lot of time outdoors? Anything?
Herbs such as omija or hwangi and 맹문동, as I mentioned before, can help prevent the heat exhaustion and heat strokes. So, and also maintaining optimal weight will be help, because if you're too fat, you'll have excessive heat in your body. And if you lose too much weight in a short period of time, you'll be vulnerable to heat exhaustion.
So how about you and me go on a diet starting today?
You guys are fine. Omijacha, though, I could use some right now, right?
Yes.
With ice on it.
You don't have any with you.
Not today.
All right, thank you to both of you for coming out and talking
Thank you.
to us this morning.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
All right, that's just about does it for this edition of Korea Today.
And enjoy your day. Stay cool out there. And we'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 7.
Speaking of stay cool, it is. How cool
When
is
did
this,
you get
right?
that? Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.